Brian's here. Can everyone hear me okay?
Hello.
Hey, Eric, it's Brian.
How you doing, Brian?
Good, how are you?
Good. Good. Yeah, I had connected and then I stepped out. I just, truth be told, I put my coffee in the microwave, so I'm going to have to go back and get it at some point.
That's okay.
But let me do the screen share.
Great.
Okay. Now I'll put something up that's worth looking at. Okay. You should see it.
Super.
All right. I'm just going to go through a few slides. As you see, is that these first ones are the ones that you gave me.
Yep.
All right. Then I just want to double check my automation. All right. Everything's good. Now, I know that you'll be doing the first 4 slides. Oh, by the way, thanks for getting on a drop earlier. It's just that I don't know. It's the techie in me. You know, what do they say?
Yeah.
Oh God, what did someone say about me once? It'll come to me. I can't think of the first part of it, but it really described me well. Oh, I'm cautious by nature and anal by choice. So I'd rather get on early and have everything all set, you know, in case who knows what.
Sure. And, you know, I hear you fine. And I know Trisha's here, but I can't hear her. She can hear, I think she can hear us, but we can't hear her.
Okay. And let me say, would it be Trisha or you doing these first 4 slides?
Trisha's going to start it. She's going to pass it to me. And then she's going to, quote unquote, hand the mic over to me. And then I'm going to, quote unquote, hand the mic over to you.
Perfect. So just give me some type of cue that would move me from slide to slide.
Sure. Yeah. When I say, I'll say something like, Eric, take it away or something to that effect.
No, I mean like going through the first 4.
Oh, okay.
Like, you know, hello, let me tell you about our speaker, and then I'll go blah, 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 you know, you'll go blah, 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 blah. Oh, by the way, people have asked about, you know, PMP attendance, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And then, you know, like with tell me a little bit about, or let me tell you a little bit about PMO partners, and I'll try to do that. And then.
Yeah. So yeah, Trisha will handle that part.
I just didn't want to look clunky at the very beginning.
Of course. No, I think Trisha will do it in a way that, you know, you'll be able to follow along.
Perfect. All right, good. I'm psyched. So I'll tell you, I'm going to go get my coffee. I'm going to leave everything exactly as it is.
Okay.
And I'll be back about I don't know. Well, I'm just gonna get my coffee. I'll be back with my headphones, but I'll just put myself on mute till you're ready to use me, and I'm good to go.
Super.
All right.
All right.
Thanks.
Thanks, Eric.
By the way, it's a pleasure working with you on this. I look
You
forward
too.
to talking.
I'm really excited about that. I'm actually really excited about the topic too.
Awesome. Well,
Yeah.
when all this is said and done, probably maybe tomorrow or something, if we could do a debrief and maybe figure out next steps between our companies.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, we are going to mention that you'll be at the CMAS event in
Oh, thank
August.
you. They'll
Yeah.
really appreciate it.
Yep, as will we. So
All right. Awesome. Talk to you
great.
soon.
Thanks,
Back.
Eric. Hey, Eric.
Yes.
So we're having a little trouble hearing Trisha.
Okay.
So she's on with us and she's acknowledging us and she can hear us, but she can't speak. Do you have an idea as why that might be?
Maybe it's something on the computer. I would have her call in on the telephone number line. Or also, do you have her on mute? Have you opened her up?
I don't think I have her on mute.
All
Can
right,
you hear her?
No, I can't. But if her audio, if it should be working, if she's going through the computer, maybe have her go back and hang up and go back in through the telephone.
Do you want to try that, Trish? All right, she's going to try that.
Okay. Hey, could I do another kind of quick sound check for you? I'm going to have a co-presenter here. Are you ready? This is a fun one.
Sure.
When I go to describe the Internet of Things, what better thing to describe the Internet of Things than an Internet of Things? Alexa, what is the Internet of Things?
The Internet of Things is the internetworking of physical devices, vehicles, buildings, and other items embedded with electronics, software, sensors, actuators, and network connectivity which enable these objects to collect and exchange data.
Great.
Alexa, thank you.
That's what I'm here for.
What do you think?
That's funny. That's good.
I figure what better than an Internet of Things to explain the Internet of Things? But I'll tell you what, I'll just sit quiet for a few minutes. Are you trying to work with Tricia?
Yeah. I think in the worst case scenario, Eric, if Tricia can't get in either by phone or by this portal, I think I'll just have to handle her part.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
I can.
Okay, I can come in on my phone, but not on my laptop. Are you?
You know what? Is your laptop? Well, we hear you great on the phone. I'm hearing your echo. Are you still connected to the your microphone to the laptop, or for some reason you're coming in echoed?
Yeah, I am. I'm afraid if I end this, if I end the meeting, will I end everything?
No, just mute yourself on the computer.
Okay. I can hear myself coming through. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, but you definitely caused an echo.
Okay. You know, I'm going to move away from my laptop, or I'm going to close it. Okay, how about now?
I still hear it a little bit. I don't know why.
Okay, now it's closed.
Oh, speak again, please.
Hi, Eric.
That's better.
Much
Better?
better.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm just going to be using my phone then. I don't know. You know, I test my audio. I tested it this morning. I did the audio speakers and the sound, and it was fine. And even testing it on Zoom now, everything sounds fine. But
Yeah.
then, so that's okay. We've got the phone. We've got the technology. So
Perfect. And I don't hear any more echo, 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 echo.
good. So we are in practice mode still, and give it about 5 more minutes, and then we'll go to broadcast.
Okay. Sounds good. Oh, and Tricia, I don't know if you heard it. Something I told Brian is when I get to the Internet of Things, I'm going to have Alexa tell me what the Internet of Things is.
I heard that.
Oh,
I
okay.
did. I could hear you guys perfect, and I just kept talking, and I'm like, oh gosh, here we go.
Awesome. All right, good. So I tell you what, I'm just going to take off my headphones for a moment. I'll be back in 2 or 3 minutes. You heard my phone in the background. I'm just going to move that out, close my office door, stuff like that, and do a final prep. I'll be back in like 2 minutes.
Hey, Trish.
Sounds good.
What Eric and I discussed
Yeah.
was, essentially you like giving a little cue to him to move the screen. And I said, what Tricia says should be very easy to follow along with.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to say the title, and as soon as I start talking about Eric, you should go to the next one, and then it should move pretty quickly and get him started. It's going to be mostly the Eric show. Hi, you got a nice quiet place in the library?
I did. I found something.
Perfect.
So it was looking tough for a minute, but I did it.
Okay, I'm back and good to go.
Perfect.
I'm excited we have so many people on. This is great.
Yes, I just checked, and actually we have 74 now, so somebody must have taken themselves off the list, but that's a great number.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I said is that on Monday, if you got a bump on Monday, is what I did was I sent it out to my whole mailing list, and I got about 35 click-throughs, I think, to you guys.
Yeah, we saw that. That's amazing. Thank you. It's good.
That's great. Yeah, you're quite the webinar speaker.
Well, time will tell.
How long have you been doing the webinars? Is this something recent, or have you been doing it for quite some time?
Oh, years. Literally, I mean, with the New Horizons, I've been doing they do a lot of, provide us a lot of training classes to do.
Yeah.
I've been doing one a month with New Horizons for 5 years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Maybe a little bit less. I'm doing, opportunistically, I've done more with other firms, some of our own, but as part of particularly with moving to the ITML Institute, I'm going to try to do them much more often and make it really part of a true marketing plan.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
And a lot of our classes, we're probably 50% of our revenue comes from virtual-based classes.
Interesting. Wow.
I had a guy in my team actually midnight to 2 in the morning. I can't do these. I can't do it anymore. But for a company in India.
Midnight to 2. Oh gosh.
I know. I'm actually in the process of getting a California instructor because from them it's 9 to 11.
Yep.
which is much more tolerable. Or actually, the 3-day certification exam, the ITMLP, that's going on today. One of my, by a guy named Phil Ailes, who works for me, does it every month. So we're very used to doing virtual stuff.
Perfect. Well, this is all new for us, so.
What's great about it is that I could be here in a dress shirt, jeans, and no socks, and no one would know, and no one would care.
Yeah, that's great. That's one of the benefits of technology.
Absolutely. So actually, knowing that I have the regular version of Zoom, you have the webinar version. You've inspired me. I'm going to, as time allows, maybe tomorrow or next week, I'm going to look to potentially upgrade. Because what I want to do for the video portion of it, I have a green screen behind me.
Yep.
I want to, at the speakers convention I was at earlier this week, people are actually using it. Actually, I'll tell you what I'm doing. You might find it of interest. I'm going to use Zoom to basically video myself. I'm going to use the video as YouTube YouTube videos. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to strip off the audio and I'm going to use it for podcast.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, one of the cool things with Zoom is you can record right to YouTube with these webinars and Facebook Live. So they've got some good, cool integrations, and you'll have that cool background. What's going to be your background, Eric?
When you watch the Patriots and the Red Sox, it sort of has the logo behind me. It'll be like that. And then as I move to redoing our formal e-learning, then what I'll do is that I'll use green screen to put like the slide content next to me. Haven't figured out that step yet. I've played with it and it works, but I haven't really operationalized it yet.
Yeah, oh, that is such a cool function of Zoom. I was so excited when I learned that.
But I have 11:59. So whenever you're ready, what I said is obviously I'll be doing the slides. When you say, let me tell you about our speaker, I'll move to the one about me. When you say about the PMP attendance, I'll move to that. Then you say, now about PMO partners, I'll move it forward, etc. So
perfect.
Just so that we won't be clunky at the beginning, I'd mentioned it to Brian.
That's perfect. All right, I'm going to go ahead and launch the webinar.
Okay.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, 7 Technical Trends Project Managers Should Know About Today. We're going to go ahead and get started. We've got a great presentation by Eric Bloom today. Eric is the president of Manager Mechanics. He's also an executive director for the IT Management and Leadership Institute. And he is a well-known keynote speaker. He spoke at many PMI events. In fact, that's where we met. And to let you know, he will be speaking at the PMI CMAS Professional Development Day, August 16th. So if you'd like to check him out there, he'll be speaking on negotiation skills. And he'll also be speaking as a keynote speaker at the Project Summit BA World in October. So you can join that to see him again. And he has a #1 Amazon bestseller, so please check out his book. And as a reminder today for our PMP folks, you can earn 1 PDU for attending today's webinar. You can go in and log it under the digital online media. And now I would like to introduce Brian Abrams. He's the founder of PMO Partners. We are the sponsor of this webinar series. So Brian, would you like to talk a little bit about PMO Partners before you introduce Eric?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Tricia. And thank you, everyone, for attending. Really looking forward to this webinar today, hosted by PMO Partners in conjunction with Manager Mechanics and Eric Bloom. I want to tell you a little bit about PMO Partners. We are a niche staffing firm specializing in placing IT project managers, both on a contract basis and a permanent basis. We work with candidates all across New England and also customers all across New England, and certainly would be interested in letting anyone else know about what we do if you have any questions. So please, feel free to reach out to me afterwards. My phone number is there as well as my email. And looking forward to a great presentation. So thank you, Eric.
Thank you, Brian, and also Tricia, and thank you to PMO Partners for hosting today's webinar. As you know, today's topic is 7 technical trends project managers should know about. Is that, I think this is a really, really exciting time for people in IT, project managers, if anyone also plays a business analyst role, because there's just so many things that are happening. It seemed that during the .com days is that there was all this this work that was going on, these new technologies, etc. Then it sort of leveled out for a number of years. And then over the past few years, boy, it's been in a tear in regard to what's being done. So what I'd like to do is basically start by saying cloud computing and mobile computing are not leading edge technologies. Let me describe this, that these are not counted in the 7. Is that that says big blue letters, so I'll read part of it, but mobile and cloud are no longer leading edge. The reason that I say that is because they're well-established platforms. But also is, if you think about it, of all of the trends that we're going to talk about, or all the ones that you think that you can think of as we enter this, what mobile devices as well as cloud computing, and quite frankly also the omnipresent internet, that's basically you can have connectivity anywhere. These have been around for a long time, and what they've become is the infrastructure and the enabling technologies that are driving the next level of automation. What I would also say to you is that data analytics, the ability to analyze data and such, has also been around for years. So I also no longer consider data analytics to be a leading edge technology. Certainly it's used within leading edge technologies, but itself is, I remember data analytics when data warehousing first came out. Oh, I don't know, 20, 25 years ago. I was only 3 or 4 at the time. No, I'm kidding. But anyway, is, they were doing, basically, there was analysis being done on data to try to figure out all sorts of things at that point. Now it's grown dramatically. But again, I don't consider data analytics a trend or considered a leading edge technology, but it's intricately needed, the mathematics within it, for things that are leading edge. And I'm going to mention a couple of them here: macro and micro predictive analytics. What those are is that, for example, the most common one that I like to say, the one that everyone can associate with immediately, is you go to Amazon and you buy a book. What comes up underneath it? People who've purchased this book have also purchased books B, C, and D listed underneath. Why do they do that? Well, they do it because maybe, and I have to admit, I've done this. I look at it and say, wow, that does look like a pretty good book. I think I'll get that one too. So they do it as a way to increase sales. But in effect, what's really happening is that they've analyzed data in the background using big data, which is one of our top 7 trends, to analyze what people, when they bought this book, what other books did they buy, and they feed that in. Machine learning, which is also another trend we'll talk about later. Most of machine learning, quite frankly, is analysis of data trends and data of all types that then basically the machine can learn from itself. But we'll see this too. But what is it all based on? It's all based on mathematical algorithm. Now, also other trends that we'll see. So I like to set this up when I go to talk about these trends, again, because it's important to understand the underlying technologies that are driving it. The technologies, maybe with the exception of 3D printing, really wouldn't have been possible 25 years ago, sort of pre-internet, and pre some of the other tools that we're looking at. So from here, let's go to our first trend. Our first trend is data visualization. What data visualization is described here. It's the process of virtually presenting data in a way that provides meaning to the viewer. Its goal, or the why we have it and why we care about it, is basically to communicate information intelligibly in a way through graphic means. So I'm going to give you an example of this. Say, for example, that you're looking at a chart and it shows your stock portfolio over the last 6 months. If you're given 6 numbers, you're going to have one at the end of each month. You're going to have to look at those numbers one at a time, compare it to the one before to see if it went up or see if it went down. If it's in a graph, bang, you know, a tenth of a second, and you've totally internalized, intellectualized the way that the trend is going regarding your portfolio. You know, there are a couple of other tools. In fact, one of them will be we'll be showing in a bit, where a portfolio manager at an instant snap of his fingers can understand the entire portfolio. But before that, let's talk about why. You know, all right, everybody talks about data visualization, but why? Or if I wanted to be a wise guy, I could put up here, why do we care? Well, you've heard a picture is worth 1,000 words. But quite frankly, some pictures are worth more than 1,000 words. Some of them are less, but you get the idea here. It's great at displaying time-based trends, which is what I mentioned. And, you know, hopefully in your stock portfolio going up, things along that line. Next, what it does is it's to present analytical findings. Things like flowcharts, pie charts, is that, you can tell my technology background. Wow, I don't know where flowcharts come from. I don't think I've written one of those by hand in 20 years. Oh, someone has their audio turned on. I'm hearing my own echo. It's bad enough you have to listen to me. I don't want to have to listen to me too. No, I'm just kidding. But anyway, is that for analytical findings, do you know that if you present, there's been many studies on this, if you present your findings of a survey or through mathematical analysis, if you present it in a chart, it could be a pie chart, it could be a bar chart, etc., that people are more likely to believe the numbers and less likely to ask you questions regarding their believability. Why? Because it's in a pretty graph. I don't know why that's true, other than the fact that if you've taken enough care to graph it, then it's probably something that you would have cared about beforehand in the creation of the data. But it's great from that perspective. And lastly, what it does here is it enhances statistical discovery. Humans are great at seeing patterns. And I'll give you an example of that. You know, you ever look up at those cumulus clouds in the sky, and you point out to your significant other or one of your kids and say, "Hey, look at that cloud up there. Doesn't it look like a dinosaur?" Does it really look like a dinosaur? Not really. Okay? But the reason that we do that is because humans, by our background, we look for pattern recognition. The reason is for example, is through our evolution. Imagine 10,000 years ago or 100,000 years ago. You know, a caveman walks out of his cave. In the distance, he sees what looks to be 2 eyes and maybe a couple of great big teeth behind a tree, but not 100% sure. Well, if there's a saber-toothed tiger hiding behind there, the caveman better know about it sooner rather than later as a survival mechanism. So just through evolution, we've gotten good at that. Now, as I go to this next slide, in the upper right, that chatter chart, is that as you look at that, is that very often, yes, you can do statistical analysis, but we can see right without even looking at the numbers that there's a lot in the bottom right, and it seems to go up and a little bit to the right, but maybe not as correlated as one might think. Now, this chart that's in the top middle, the one with the black and yellow, that's what they call a heat map. The way a heat map works, and this you can't look at any of the numbers or names on it or anything. Maybe you can catch out that the top left box says Microsoft. It's their stock symbol. But what happens with these is, imagine a portfolio manager or an equity trader sitting at his or her desk. And if everything gets bright green, then what happens? The stock market's going up. If it gets bright red, the market's tanking. And then each of the individual stocks here, if it's not moving much, it'll be black. If it's going up a little bit, it'll go from, it'll go up into light or dark green and then bright green if it's flying up. But just with a snap of the fingers, you can look at that and someone can totally understand the general flow of the stock market. This is the power of general graphics. And by the way, the one on the left, don't underestimate the power of the graphics inside of Excel. It's also, quite frankly, my favorite price. It's free. And just by simple pie charts, bar charts, etc. Use them in your status reports, etc. But anyway, there's great power in this. Next, this is a new one. Now, if you want to see where this picture is, not now, wait till the webinar is over, but if you go to YouTube and Google a hologram whale in gym, you'll get about a 1-minute video of this. What it was everybody sitting there. There are projection cameras at various places around the gym, and it really looks like the whale is coming right out of the gym floor. They're using that in entertainment and some other places I'll be mentioning in a sec. Well, what the heck, I'll mention them now. They're using them in entertainment. Or imagine that you want to give a training class. And I'm here in Boston, and let's say that you're in Denver, and I don't have time to fly out there, but you really want the presentation looking like it's in person. There are technologies coming out where basically I could be standing with a certain number of cameras in my office in front of a green screen, and that it would look not flat, but it could look three-dimensional to the people in Denver. Other things, virtual meetings, sales, etc. So depending on the industry you're in, this could be of great value. The next one, virtual reality and what they call augmented reality. So does anybody remember that Pokemon thing that where what happens is people were walking around with their cell phones and they were looking for, I can't think of what they're called now, the little people that were out around that you could see through your phone. Now you might say, what's a game? What do we want to do this for? Think about how you can use augmented reality and virtual reality for real. Augmented reality, by the way, that's where you see what's there, but it puts extra things on the screen like Google Glass. You know who's been using this for years? Pilots in fighter aircraft, because right on their screen inside their their glasses is it showing all of the controls, how fast it's going, etc. In fact, a takeoff on this is a friend of mine just bought a new BMW, and the speedometer and the GPS and such will actually show on the inside of the windshield. So there's real business application to this. Or a vacation, if you want to buy a house, realtors will be using this instead of showing you stagnant pictures. Now, all of this is good. We talked about some standard graphics. Certainly this in itself could be an hour presentation. Each one of these actually could be. But let's talk now, most importantly, about you. Is that what are the career implications for a PM, project manager, obviously, related to data virtualization as a trend? First of all, you get to work on some really cool stuff because of the different technologies that are the different uses of it. For example, a lot of, as I mentioned, real estate agents are using it if you're working for a firm like that, for any number of things. But it really works well. The next advantage to you is you have to be careful. Some applications, just because you can build it, you might not, maybe you shouldn't. So whereas, for example, just moving back to this for a minute, this stuff is really cool, the holograms, and you might say, wow, you could actually go to, if you want to see how this works, go to one of the Microsoft stores, and I don't know about all of them, but certainly the majority of them will let you try on the glasses in one of their areas. So there's probably applications you can think of now where these could be of great value. But the thing is, just because you can build it doesn't mean you should. No disrespect to the technologies, but be careful where you're using these. You don't want to let your career, by taking on a one-year project, go in a direction that is ahead of its time. Next, it gives you the opportunity to enhance your professional credentials and marketing. Why? Because think about it. If you're now introducing heat maps or or which is actually itself an older technology. But if you're working on these advanced technologies related to visualization, then what that does is that sets you up to do more of this in the future, to expand your general resume, etc. And then lastly, what all of that does is it increases your marketability, which, as you'll see, is a theme as we go through today. From here now, let me bring you to our next trend, and this is the Internet of Things. Simply put, is that the Internet of Things it's basically that everything is connected to the Internet. But you know what? Rather than me describe to you what the Internet of Things is, let an Internet of Things describe to you what an Internet of Things is. Okay, you ready? Alexa, what is the Internet of Things?
The Internet of Things is the internetworking of physical devices, vehicles, buildings, and other items embedded with electronics, software, sensors, actuators, and network connectivity which enable these objects to collect and exchange data.
Wasn't that great? Alexa, thank you.
You're welcome.
So here is that this is what it is. I mean, how many of you have the, the Echo, or I have the one that looks like a little hockey puck? Is that it's incredible when you start using these things, the power that they provide. The Internet of Things, they say that there are literally will be billions and billions of things connected to the Internet from various directions. I'm going to give you an example of some. Is that listed here on the right. A couple of them I'm going to talk about particularly. But first, doorbells. How many people have seen that ad on TV where you can put a doorbell fixture over your doorbell? When someone presses it, it will automatically connect to the Internet, and it'll ring on your cell phone with a camera and show you who's standing at your front door, regardless of where you are. That's an Internet of Things items. But let's talk about a couple specifically. You're probably wondering why the left is empty. Here's why. This is the first one I'd like to describe a little bit more specifically, is that farmer measuring microclimates. What they're doing to basically minimize the usage of water on farms, I'm going to say in the US, but many places certainly around the world, is what they're doing is they're putting sensors, Internet of Thing type sensors, about every 100 yards or so, maybe a little farther, maybe a little closer, but for now, just for the sake of argument, let's say every 100,000 yards. And what they do is it assesses the microclimate of that football field size area, or soccer field, should you say, size area. Now, why does it do that? What does it look for? Well, for example, let's say that it's the morning and that part of the field is in the shade. It may not need to be watered yet. But there's another part of the field that's the sun has been baking on it for the last 2 hours. The soil feels a little slow, feels a little dry. The sun feels a little bit too hot. So what will happen is the system will automatically turn on the sprinklers in that part of the field. The clouds come in, it's overcast. The microclimates seem fine other than one that's a little bit too dry. So what happens is it basically waters another part of the field. It starts to rain. Say it's a really big field. It starts to rain on one side of the field. The sprinklers immediately turn off. So think of the water savings, and most particularly not only the better crops, but the financial savings that provides. Let's look at another example here. In this example, the Internet of Thing item is inside of you. I'm going to give you a true example. It's about a cousin of mine who actually recently passed away. But what he did was he had an issue where his heart would basically just stop working. So he had something that would automatically refibrillate him in his chest if that issue arises. Now, so it was like a, what's it called? To keep your heart going. I can't believe I'm forgetting the word. But anyway, is that what'll happen is it just monitors his heart all day long. Pacemaker is what I was looking for. It monitors his heart all day long, and if there's any incident, it will automatically refibrillate him. It's actually saved his life a couple of times. But guess what else it does? At the end of the day, approximately 7 o'clock each evening, it automatically connects to the Internet. It sends the days, the prior 24 hours worth of information saved in the device that, again, is inside his chest. It sends that off to the hospital. The hospital has a program that automatically analyzes it to see if there were any abnormalities, and it adjusts for if he's walking quickly or if he's, if he's sleeping or whatnot. Certainly if you're running to catch a bus, your heart rate goes up and so on, adjusts for all of those things. But if the machine, if the program sees any abnormalities in him for the prior 24 hours, then what'll happen is it'll automatically email his cardiologist, which will then call him and say, hey, we saw some funny things yesterday on your readout. Now, to go one step further, what happens if he was not in the at home at 7 o'clock? Then the thing in his chest would be smart enough to know that it hadn't sent that data out yet, so that when he returned home, whatever time it was, it would automatically connect at that time and send it out. So these are the kind of things that the Internet of Things is going to be used for, in addition to all these other things here shown on the right. Now, what are the implications of this for IT? The reason that I put in this slide, because every one of these implications can be new projects that will, of course, need a project manager to lead them. But think about it, is with all of these data points, with all of these Internet of Things items around the street, around the world, there's going to be more security entry points for cybersecurity. There's going to be new devices to support different types, different technologies from a IT infrastructure perspective. There's a continually growing data set. The amount of data that they say they analyze on, Facebook and things that humans physically type in, that pales in comparison to the number and the amount of data that's produced through sensors even now, and that's continuing to grow exponentially. You'll have to work with new business partners. For example, the farm people probably never worked with the irrigation people beforehand. Next, the increased integration with enterprise architecture and all of the issues that brings. And lastly, now you may have to be working, depending on where these devices are, geographically dispersed around the office, around the world. So what are the career implications of Internet of Things for PMs? Well, the first is new stakeholders around the company in more of the operational areas which probably there has been automation, but not too much going on. Next, what it will do is involvement in innovative new technologies. Think about it, is that, think of the areas that you're working in now, where your expertise is currently being used in the projects that you're working on. Not all of them, of course, but there may be some of you right now on this call thinking about this and saying, wow, if we connected in XYZ type sensors, then we could really do something with it. Next is potential to use your hidden skills. What hidden skills are, I refer to those as skills at the office that you have, as a professional and as a person, but aren't currently being utilized within your career, within your current job. For example, let's say that you have an undergraduate degree in mechanical engineering. And you also did some software, you liked software, you ended up as a programmer, and from there you became a BA and a project manager. But you have all those dormant skills you haven't used. The Internet of Things is a great way now for you to maybe get to use a little bit of that, because you'll understand the mechanics and the connections, etc. Also, if you're more on the software side and have a hardware background or a datacom background, data communications, it's the same kind of thing. It's the ability to use more of your skills if you can find the right project to work on. And what is all of that? And with that, also all of this data coming in, where's it going to go? It's going to be coming into databases, which it gives you connection in your projects to working with big data. And what do all these things do, as you might expect by now? It increases your career marketability. That brings us to our next one, which is big data. I'm going to pause on this slide for just a moment. The reason is, I don't know, I really like the elephant with the zeros and ones on it. I was really happy with myself when I found this graphic. But anyway, let's move forward on the Internet of Things. Now, you ready for this? I'm going to put a lot of pressure on myself. In one slide, this next slide, for anyone who's not familiar with big data and how it works, This next slide, when I'm done, you'll understand conceptually what how big data works technically. Okay, you ready? Drum roll, please. Boom. Okay, let's start at the bottom. What is big data? It's data that comes from everywhere. Just think about it as, by definition, big data is data that is so large that it can't be managed using standard database technologies, like Oracle, for example, or Microsoft SQL Server. So the data comes in from everywhere. So then what do you do with it? Could be called a data lake. There are different names for it. But basically what you do is, if you're using, say, a product called Hadoop, which is in my example here, is Hadoop is an open source piece of software. It's created by the Apache Foundation, which is the same people who created Linux servers. In fact, they call it the LAMP structure, which is Linux, Apache, which is the server, the internet server, MySQL, which is the database, and which is a database technology, and PHP. PHP is an open source programming language. Actually, my company's websites, the ITML Institute's website is actually built using PHP, as is, among other things, WordPress. So anyway, is that what happens with Hadoop is that it takes this data and it spreads it over 100, 1,000 different Linux servers, a little bit of data on each one. Why does it do it? So that when it goes to retrieve the data, it's not pulling it from one CPU and one database. It's parallel processing over hundreds or thousands of Linux machines. Well, how does it know what to do? By a piece of data called MapReduce, which is also part of Hadoop. What is it? What is MapReduce? Basically, it's for those of you who know Java or an equivalent programming language, it's a base class. It's a group of subroutines that a Java programmer can use that uses the data communication facility in Linux machines that says, hey, all you machines out there, I'm trying to find information on X. Please collect it and send it into the center. That's it. Okay, that's all that happens. Now, what does it create? It creates a discrete data set. What is a discrete data set? It's the same data we've been using for the last 30 years. It's a fixed length record, a comma delimited record, a CSV, like the kind that you load in and out of Excel, but it creates a data file that's small enough that we can use. And then what do you do with that data file? You analyze it using the same analytics that have been around forever. R is a newer programming language. It's actually a scripting mathematical language, but MATLAB, Business Objects, Excel, all of these are all analytical tools that can sit on the top of big data. Why? Because they're analyzing discrete data sets, which basically is created by the three things that are under the line. That's it. That's all big data is. It's no mystery. It's taking a great big chunk of data, putting it through a specialized tool to get a little chunk of data so that we can analyze it the way we've analyzed things for years. I've simplified it a little bit, but quite frankly, not that much. Its usages, in fact, where I saw this one, find infections in premature infants before they're symptomatic, is on PBS, the TV station. I did a lot of immense research. I was flipping the channels looking for something to watch, and what came on was a TV show called The Human Face of Big Data. Now, of course, think of what I do for a living. I had to watch it, but it was fascinating. So if you're interested in big data and how it's used within the medical community, you definitely should look this up. Again, it's on PBS, and it's called The Human Face of Big Data. Other ways that it can be used is to predict storms for the electrical grid. Do you know when a new storm is coming now? What they'll do is they'll use analytics based on where there are trees, where there are above line and below line above ground and below ground power lines and other things like that. And they'll actually pre-position the trucks in areas where they think there's the highest potential for people to lose power so that they don't have to be driving there in a storm. That concept actually on steroids is, if you're really interested in some really cool stuff that you can really get access to, Google Smart City. Cities are doing incredible things. There was something in Chicago that actually is Chicago used a big data analytics to assess where the rat populations in the towns around the neighborhoods would be, so that they could send the exterminators to the places to get rid of them where they would most likely reside. And they actually had a great ability to do this based on 15 key factors or something. But anyway, you can find that on Google too. Other things, payment fraud. You know, the credit card companies have been using it for years. Predictive analytics, which I mentioned earlier, on things that we want to buy, and also to process all this huge chunk of data coming in from the Internet of Things, which, you know, we've previously discussed. So as you might expect, that brings up, what does this mean for you? Well, what this means for you is you get to manage projects that drive company revenue. Think about that. The project manager who'd been working on some internal systems or internal data said, hey, can you do an analysis to see what other books people buy when they buy a particular book? And all of a sudden, they're on the front page of Amazon every time that something's purchased. But think of it, if what this can create, actually most of these megatrends, they're specifically designed to create new, and we're going to get to this more when we get to digital transformation, but they're there to basically transform the company, to find interesting ways or things that can be done. And in many cases those are revenue producing. I don't know if you've ever worked on true revenue producing type projects or new product lines or enhancements of product lines. It's a very fun place to be. And by the way, it's usually pretty well funded. Next, it's ideal for PMs who have data. If you were a DBA in a previous life or something, or you have an undergrad in mathematics, I'm telling you, if you understand data and you have a background in mathematics, then you know, for you, your future is paved with gold. If you can integrate that background into what you understand now as, you know, as a project manager, it's a phenomenal combination. And what does all of this do? These type projects provide you visibility to senior management. And what is, if you have this accessibility to senior management, you're working on great new projects related to big data and the direction where the company's going, guess what that does? A little gamification here. It increases your career marketability. From here now, let's move to our next trend, digital transformation. You know, I was in a panel yesterday at a CIO conference, and and was actually brought up things like the PMI triangle, about how soft skills are important, both from the from the PMI talent triangle, to call it directly, where the leadership is on the right and the business strategy and such is on the bottom. But basically the idea being is what I said was that the upper ranks of IT and the C-suite have a very, very good understanding and have been talking about digital transformation probably for a year or two now. And I was at a conference speaking to actually a bunch of PMs and BAs. And I said, who out there knows what digital transformation is? Maybe out of the 200 people in the room, maybe 10 people raised their hand. So what I would say to you, if you're not familiar with this specific term, it is very much going to affect your profession over the next year or two if it hasn't already. Go out, Google it, learn more about it. What I'm going to do here is give you a quick update, basically description of it. Is digital transformation is a blanket term for the changes made to business process, organizational design, and strategic direction due to the availability and implementation of digital technologies. You want Bloom's basically quote on that? Mine? Digital transformation is process engineering on steroids. It's just what it is. But I'm going to tell you there's a lot of skill differences in order to do it properly. In particular, I'll give you one. For business analysts whose role has always been to go and speak to the subject matter experts, internalize and analyze and understand the requirements for the new application, and then create the specification to give to the programmers. In this new world, all of that will be needed, but with the business analysts, forgive me for going to BAs for a moment, the business analyst will also have to understand the trends in the industry, the competitive landscape of the companies, how technologies are being used in other industries beyond their own, and so on. Why? Because when the business analyst working on digital transformation is trying to figure out what to do, it's not asking the subject matter expert. It's analyzing not to find out what should be done, or not to find out what is needed, but to find out what is the possible, what can be done. So it ties very heavily into innovation. So what does this do for you? It's the ability to work on very cool projects like those listed here, driving new revenue streams, creating new industries, things along this line. And what does getting to work on these types of leading these type of projects provide you? I know you're sick of hearing it, but I'm going to say it anyway. Increased career marketability. So what I'm trying to drill into you, I mean, I'm being cute with this last step here, is these trends, if you ride them correctly, if you get on the right one or position yourself internally to work on these, there is enormous professional upside for you. In addition, for just really good things to work on. Next is machine learning and AI. My phone is ringing. I'm just making sure it's not one of you guys. I'm doing a sound check just to make sure. Okay, good. It's not people saying, I can't hear you. But anyway, is machine learning and artificial intelligence. People have been talking about that for years, you know, but what I want to explain what it is. All right, machine learning is a type of artificial intelligence that provides computers with the ability to learn without explicitly programming it. Basically, what it does is it's an algorithm that's created that can learn based on experience. All right, now what's the experience thing? It's data. It analyzes data to say if these outcomes are here, what are those outcomes, etc. And with that is machine learning, basically, it focuses on the development of computer programs that teach themselves based on data. This is actually a Wikipedia quote. It was so good I didn't want to change it or come up with my own. But this is what machine learning is. In fact, so if you think about it, what does it sit on? It sits on big data, enhanced by data analytics. And where is it used? It's used everywhere. Medical diagnosis. I heard something very interesting at that conference, that CIO conference I was at yesterday. I can't say where this number came from, but I'll assume it's correct. Forgive me for not being able to say the original source. I just heard it listening to other speakers in addition to my session. And they said that medical diagnostics is that when it comes to assessing the diagnosis for cancer, is IBM Watson comes up with the right diagnosis 90% of the time, which is actually a higher percentage than the average oncologist. Again, forgive me, I can't tell you the source. I truly don't know where I would. I should have written it down. I don't know if it was said. But look at other places, training, stock evaluation, to beat really smart people on Jeopardy. Self-driving cars requires machine learning. Why? Because what is it doing? It's not, there's not an algorithm in there that they're saying, okay, if at red light, then stop. What it's doing, it's seeing all the data that everyone is doing from all of the cars that come in, and it said, wow, when that light's red, the car stops. So you should too. So it's this idea of learning and the system gaining knowledge that then can be algorithmically converted into text, into action. The next is, so okay, as you expect, I think you've probably figured out the format by now. What does this mean for you? Well, if you look at the vendor community that's out there, all of the major vendors, whether it's in human resources, finance, manufacturing, engineering, you just pick an area, is that all of these applications in their next generation is being enhanced with some form of machine learning. Not every vendor, but let me say every major vendor that wants to be around in 5 or 10 years. So what does this mean for you? It means that all these applications that you've been working on in the past, that you know well, that you're the project manager for them, start thinking right now of how can AI and machine learning be used to enhance its functionality? And maybe you pitch it as the next project. Next, it'll give you the ability to work with big data, mathematical analytics, machine learning, and all these other technologies are going to be of just growing value and growing usage moving forward. So you're positioning yourself on the front, really, at this point, of a very big wave. And what is all of that going to do? It's going to increase your career marketability. Now, next is, robotics. I don't have robotics as in itself as a trend, a leading technology trend, because robotics have been around for 30 years. They have robots making robots now. I mean, paint, putting on the paint in places. I mean, we've all seen it. You may be having your floor being vacuumed by an iRobot Roomba. I got my Boston accent in there for a moment. But where it's really getting cool is integrating robotics with AI. Here's some examples here. The first, self-driving cars. Think about it. It's moving the digital into the physical. What's a self-driving car? The car itself is a robot, right? It's moving, it's physical, etc. And it's being enhanced by algorithms, machine learning, or AI-based, depending how you want to call it, that's figuring out how the car should go, what happens when a policeman is directing traffic and a hand goes up, etc. You've seen seeing eye dogs. How about the picture on the right here? Ultimately is that there's going to be robots, or what they call, I've heard the term now, cobots, which basically is a coworker or someone assisting you, but it's not a he or a she, it's a machine. House cleaning is an area they're looking to also potentially do that, and certainly delivery drones. I'm going to tell you a very fast story here related to the delivery drone. My father was in the hospital. Thank God he's okay. He was only in for a short time. But I went to visit him. So I go over to the elevator, the door opens, and what's in the elevator is this box, just the box. It was like the size of a small dishwasher or washing machine. So, all right, think of what I do for a living. I'm walking in, I go in the elevator with it, and I'm looking around. I press 3, we were on the first floor. At the second floor, the elevator stops, the doors open, and this washing machine exits the elevator on its own. Now, guess what I had to do? Yep, I had to follow it and see what it was doing and where it was going. I love my dad, but I figured I could visit him 3 minutes later and see where this thing was going. Okay, so I follow it, and guess where it went? Went over to the nurse's station. And it got there, and it announced itself, hello, nurses on floor 2. I am here from the drug dispensary. And, someone typed in like a code, because there are drugs in it, typed a code in the top of it, and then shelves started opening by rooms. So the nurses started taking it out and putting it in, to bring it out to all the patients in the rooms. When they said they were done, they pressed a button. All of these drawers closed. The machine said, thank you. Should you need anything, I am on my way to the 3rd floor. And what it did was it went back over to the elevator. It actually stopped. There was someone with a wheelchair coming by. It stopped until the wheelchair cleared out of the way, went up to the elevator, didn't press the button, but it must have some type of Bluetooth or something. The elevator door opens. It gets in. I get back in with it. It goes up to the 3rd floor and starts it again. That's the kind of, that's a drone in effect, but it's on the ground, but of what can be done. The career implications of this. First is, if you're a PM there, mentioned with a mathematical background, sort of like the Internet of Things, boy, hooking in on projects related to AI and robotics, this could be right up your alley. I mean, it could be fun. And you guys actually make erector sets, use erector sets as a kid, putting things together and so on. I might be dating myself by using the erector set story, but hopefully you know what I mean. Those little mechanical things that we put together as kids' toys, or if you have a degree or just your love to put things together, you have a background and love doing, working on your car engine on the weekend, this is ideal for you as a direction. Next is working on leading edge technology combinations. Because think about it, many of these combinations, what do? Let's talk about the self-driving cars or the dog that I mentioned or any of this stuff. It's a combination of big data analytics, because it has to figure out what to do, taking all of that data and feeding that through machine learning, the physical devices that it requires and the mechanics to make it work, etc. It's just such a rich environment for people who are willing to be multi-professional and multi-discipline in their overall work. And guess what all of this does if you start doing this kind of stuff? It increases your career marketability. From here, now let's go to our seventh. If you haven't figured it out already, it's big data. And yes, this is a kid making, this is a Toyota, not the car, but a little Yoda. You know, when I was a kid, the most advanced computer games that you could buy at the kids' store was a little game that played NFL football, where there was a little green screen on it that, you know, you could move little players around. Do you know that if you go into Toys R Us now for about $300, you can buy your kid a 3D printer that he or she can print their own toys? And imagine what this new generation is going to understand about CAD/CAM, you know, computer-aided design, computer-aided manufacturing. This is it on steroids. You know, where this stuff is used is this picture here, is they actually, think about this, is they sent a 3D printer up to the International Space Station so that they could make their own parts. I've heard, I haven't seen anything written on it, but other than sort of an occasional comment. But they're also, think about this, on aircraft carriers. As the technology gets stronger and the ability to better manufacture metal and metal alloys through 3D printing, is they're going to have that right on the ship to be able to make spare parts not only for the ship itself, but for the fighter jets that are contained on it. You know, one that I think is just a wonderful use of it is they're using it to create body parts, cartilage for ears and noses and things along that line. But it's also being used to make prosthetics. There was this big project, you may have seen it. It was a YouTube that went viral. That on a 3D printer, they did measurements and things, and they were able to make a prosthetic hand for a child, right, and made the pieces right off the 3D printer at very low cost. So again, you know, a lot of these trends of what you're seeing is it's moving digital from simply digital to physical. Now, the advantages of working on this: the opportunity to create new manufacturing processes and new logistical processes, to work on, you know, any of the things that you could think of that could be done using 3D printing. And what would that do if you work on these types of applications? Yeah, I know, you knew it was coming. Increase your career marketability. So what I'd like to do here basically is say, with these 7 trends that we've touched, what I strongly suggest to you is to pick one or more of these trends and ride the wave. There is so much professional movement in this area and professional ability to move up through it, as well as just to, I think, in many ways, just help mankind in general. So from here, what I'd like to do is I'd like to re-show you what these seven leading technology trends are. Thank you for your time, and I'd like to open it up for questions. Brian, did any questions come up, or are there any coming in from the audience?
I haven't seen any. Trisha, have you seen any? Have you seen any questions come through from the attendees?
I don't see any right now. If anyone wants to ask a question, there's a Q&A box. You can go ahead and type it in if you have any questions.
Okay, meantime, I'll ask Alexa. Alexa, do you have any questions? She ignored me. So then what I'd like to say then given that, is that Brian, if I can pass this back to you for our sort of final slide. I know you wanted to talk about next month's speaker.
Sure. Actually, we have a question, Eric, from yes. Nikki F. Nikki, do you want to put your question to the box there?
I can't see it on my screen. I'll need you to read it to me, please.
And we have actually another person, Esposito M. What types of degrees would be best for this environment?
You know, it's interesting. Let me back up first of all and say, more important than the degree is the knowledge. So, for example, is that, and it would depend which one. I mean, if you have a undergrad or master's degree in applied mathematics, should you be inclined in that area, there's a million directions that you can go with it. You know, when I was a kid, a degree in math, people say, well, what are you going to do with it? You know, add numbers. It's one of the hottest degrees coming out of college now. The others I would say would be, believe it or not, is that as it gets to data visualization and that side of it would be the, you know, things on the more artistic side. Things associated with usability, with graphic design, etc. That's a very hot area. The other is anything that would be, you know, what they call a degree, that anything that's multidisciplinary, which would tie to, you know, to like the robots and or Internet of Things, tying the physical to the digital. You know, another big area, I'm just sort of looking through, oh yeah, there are degrees now in innovation and machine learning. So if you're a programmer by background, you know, to dig more into the that area, that would be of enormous value. So I would say that those would be the big areas, all, you know, sort of centering, if I had to pick, you know, just two, what I would say a degree in database management, specifically with a tint toward big data and mathematics.
That's great, Eric. Nikki had asked, in terms of analyzing big data, what are your thoughts on Crystal Reports or other report writers?
Oh, wow. It's funny. I used to use Crystal Reports. I think that the report writers are great. I think any of those standard, whatever tool you know and use effectively, is that where that would reside is that once the data is in a discrete format, then yeah, absolutely, Crystal Reports is it's a great product to sit on top of it. The trick will be is having the underlying pinnings that pull this huge amount of data to create the discrete data set.
Another question, Eric. How important is the PMP certification?
Oh, wow. I see the PMP certification as continuing to grow in importance. You know, this obviously was IT type, you know, type trends, but in general, you know, I continue to see the PMP grow to be seen in all areas. There are certain companies out there right now that will not hire project managers, sort of regardless of what they'll be working on if they don't have the PMP. Also, from a PMP perspective, I think that while the certification is in itself of great value, I think that obviously the material that you learn on how to manage projects simply by studying for the exam is of great value. Now, I'm going to go one step farther, if I could, and say that not only do I think that the PMP is a great certification, both for credential and everything else, but I would say is that for those of you who are not currently associated or active with your PMI chapters, is I would strongly suggest you do so. Just talking to other people, finding out what they're doing, you know, making great contacts, you know, getting assistance, you know, as needed, you know, just helping to enhance the profession. I strongly suggest the PMI. It's one of the most active and successful associations that I know of.
Great answer, Eric. Well, thank you everybody for the questions. And there was one more question asking if the presentation will be made available. Yes, we actually have recorded this presentation, and we're going to email it out either later today or tomorrow to all the people that are here. And you know, again, I wanted to thank you, Eric, for really a great presentation. It was very informative, very interesting stuff. Next month, we have another webinar scheduled for Thursday, August 17th at 12 o'clock. I will be sending out more information on this as well. This is going to be with Joe Biggs, who is a noted speaker on program management. The topic this time is going to be guiding your organization through the PPM decision-making process. So hope we see everyone there. Again, PMO Partners is a niche staffing firm specializing in placing project managers, both on a contract basis and a permanent basis. So if you're interested in learning more about us, please get in touch with me. My email is brian@pmopart.com. My phone number is 978-852-7053. And that's it for our end. We hope everyone enjoyed the presentation today. Again, thanks to Eric Bloom from Manager Mechanics, and hope everyone joins us next month.